I'm going to self-publish
Mm.
and see if I can get some traction myself, and then maybe go to a publishing house afterwards and be like, okay, I've got this traction on my own, and I'm thinking, to really take this to the next level, let's work together.
Yeah.
So I've got a bit more leverage than just the art itself.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see.
Cool.
Hey,
I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
I'm watching and learning, because I've always wanted to write a book, like always.
Just start writing, Faith. Just start writing. Maybe have like a little idea of what you're gonna talk about in mind. But honestly, I think like in the process of writing is how the book came together. Like what it is now is so far from what it started as when I put the first words down. It's so far. I barely had a plan. Like I maybe had a couple characters that I wanted to make sure were in, but it's evolved numerous times as I've written it. So I would say just write, and then you'll start to pick things out, and things will kind of form together, and you'll pull other ideas from elsewhere. And then if you need like the bridge kind of stuff, I would guess you're writing non-fiction, right? For like fiction.
No. I'd be writing fiction.
Oh, fiction as well.
Yeah.
Oh, then even better. Just write. Just write. Just write. Don't even. There's not, because it's all from your head. Like if we're writing non-fiction, I think there's a caveat of
So for non-fiction, I've been keeping like basically a diary on like my property journey and stuff like that. So as and when I'm ready, I'll like put that together and actually package it into a nice like book and stuff. So I think for me, non-fiction isn't too hard, because it's just what you're experiencing. But I do have quite a wild imagination. When I was younger, I used to write like little series and little books for myself, and I also had a blog back in the day. So yeah, I'll revive it. Now's the time, isn't it? Like we're all indoors.
Something that you could do is just go back and see like some old stuff you did, and see like, can I put my own like lens that I've got now on this and like adapt it? You might get some interesting stuff from there.
Yeah. That's right. Anyway,
let me start the podcast. So welcome everybody to the Garden of Edun podcast. If you tuned in till now, thank you very much. I think that was a very insightful convo me and Faith just had, if you want to be a writer. So today on the podcast, I do have Faith, who is one old friend of mine. We've known each other for quite a long time, almost a decade,
almost, because I would have been 18 when I went to uni.
It's crazy.
It's mad. It's actually mad. Do you know what I love is when Facebook does the memories, how, because I think starting at uni, Facebook was like the main social media platform, and obviously now it's more Instagram. But those Facebook memories, sometimes when it comes up like from 7-8 years ago, there was one the other day of me and Nelma in what was that club? What was that? Was it no? Oh,
Rock
that
City.
club. No. The one near the old Market Square. That when you used to, when everyone used to jump, the floors felt like it was moving.
Ocean. No, not Ocean.
No, not Ocean. It was like where all the black parties happened. What was it called?
Was it that little bar? Market Bar? No, not Market Bar.
It was near Market Bar. Oh my God, I'm gonna kill myself if I don't remember this. Oh my gosh. Right, I'm gonna have to message the girls, because nah. You know when you're like, I need
You need to know this.
No, I need to know this.
Is this the parties we'd go to in first year?
Yeah.
I fully can't remember.
Club we used
Oceana?
to go, no, we used to go to
man.
In Knots. Where I had my 20th. Oh my gosh. Penthouse.
No, it was covered. Penthouse.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that yeah. Some stuff went down in that place, let me tell you.
That reminds me actually, because we're both Scorpios, and one funny
Yeah.
thing that I've never told you, Faith, right, before
What?
we get started, is that sometimes when you would put out the invite for your birthday, it would remind me, oh shit, I need to do something for my birthday. Like seriously, because I don't know why, but I've never really liked to plan my birthdays too much.
Yeah.
And so I would always avoid it until I saw your invite, and then I'd be like, okay, I should probably do something too. And then sometimes yours would fall on the same day, and I'd be like,
Oh no. What's the date of yours?
9th?
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. It was always the thing that reminded me, oh man, okay, my birthday's coming soon. Maybe I should
do something. See,
Yeah.
I was that person that would be planning from like 3 weeks in advance. Like I used to do like birthday weekenders. And I think it was because growing up, me and my older brother had the same birthday, and we're 4 years
Okay.
apart. And growing up, I always felt like his birthday, he just took precedence. Like he always turned the big numbers before I did. So like he turned 10, he turned 16. So then like I'd feel a bit like, oh. So then when I went to uni, I wasn't tied to him anymore. So my birthday was my birthday. So I used to, I'd be like Friday, Saturday, we're doing something both days. And actually last year I chose not to celebrate my birthday for the first time in ages, because I was just like, you know what? I just didn't really want to celebrate. 27 is such an odd age. And then also I tend to find that I spend so much on my birthday for no reason. And I was like, I'd rather give some money to charity or something. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, my next big birthday, I'll celebrate my 30th for sure.
Yeah, I think 30, same as you, is going to be one that I'm going to actually plan well in advance, because it's a big one.
Yeah,
it's a big one, and a lot of life has culminated to that point, right?
Do you remember when we were younger, thinking of 30, you thought that that's your life done? Do you remember?
Yeah.
Like 30 was an old person. But now I feel so young still. Yeah. But then I look at these 20-year-olds, I'm like, you're kids.
Honestly, I look at some of the 20, 21-year-olds and I'm just like, so we were so young.
Yeah. But we thought we were grown, up in penthouse, popping bottles. Mate. Oh.
God. Good times. Good times. So Faith, please, if you could tell everybody listening who you are, what it is you do, and
Well, my name is Faith Locken. I live in South London, best part of London. Don't cross the river for no man. East. Anyway. And I am a commercial surveyor, so I'm a chartered commercial surveyor. I also invest in property. So I'm a property investor and developer. I've been in property about 8 years now. I have a master's in real estate finance investment. Literally, my life is property. It's so sad. It's actually so sad. When I think about it, I'm like, I've always been in property. But I guess that's just been me. Ever since I was about 15, I was like watching Homes Under the Hammer, all of them shows. But at the time, I genuinely thought that property or investing in property was just not attainable for me, because I come from a single parent family. I'm a refugee from Uganda. We moved here back in the mid 90s. You know, still living at home, council house. Like, I genuinely, growing up, I saw property or these kind of shows and thought, yeah, that's for people with money. And it wasn't until I was in university and my friend, I don't know if you remember Matthew Walters, one of my friends. I always used to hang out with him. I think I was meant to be revising for my Mandarin exam. I did Spanish and Mandarin.
You know what? One of the things I had in my head before you came on is the fact that you did Spanish and Mandarin. And
then flipped to go into property.
I just think that what measures did you have in place, especially for Mandarin, because it's such a different language. Like, I don't know, I feel like you need to be creative to learn something where the symbols are different and everything's just different. Like, how? Just out of curiosity.
So funnily enough, at school I was one of those people that was good at pretty much every subject and really enjoyed learning, probably because I'm from African background, my mum was like, you better just learn education.
Yeah.
So I loved everything. I didn't really have anything in particular I wanted to do. For a long time, I was going to go and do engineering. I was either going to do mechanical or structural engineering. And then I realized when I was in A-level, I don't like labs. I hate being like, I like science, but I just don't like having to apply it. Like where, how most people in school love the like experiment side of things.
Yeah.
I actually hated For me, it was like, okay, now I've got to get this burette out, this conical flask, this whatever. And then I've got to do all kinds. It was too much work.
You didn't.
I just wanted to read about science, and I just wanted to watch Bill Nye the Science Guy or watch David Attenborough or like, I just wanted to absorb the knowledge. I didn't want to have to apply any of it. And so I decided, without telling my mum, that I was going to go and, because I did further maths, English, no, I'm getting English from. I did further maths, physics, chemistry, and Spanish at A-level.
Yeah.
And then I just chose, I'm going to take Spanish forward. And when I was thinking about what to do the Spanish with, because I could have done Spanish on its own, but I kind of wanted to do two. So, and I wanted a challenge as well, something completely new. So I was looking at Arabic or Mandarin. And what I thought was, Arabic has an alphabet to it. So if I really wanted, I could potentially teach myself. Mandarin, I was like, nah, I need a formal structured learning to actually learn this language, because I'm never going to teach myself Mandarin. So that's when I chose Chinese. And that's when I found Nottingham, and I fell in love with the campus. Like online, when I was looking at the website, I was like, oh my gosh, I could see myself on the downs, looking over the lake. And that's how I ended up doing languages.
Wow.
And it's funny because but still, whilst I was at uni, I would still be interested in property, watching these property shows, going to auctions. Like, why am I going to auctions? I got no money to buy anything, but I'd go for the experience. And a friend of mine, Matthew, basically said to me one day when we were meant to be revising, but I was on Savills' auction website because I wanted to see how much a property had sold for just around the corner, in Radford, actually, not too far.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Shout out Radford. And he said to me, he was like, why don't you go into property if you love it so much? I was like, oh my gosh, it was like a light bulb moment. I literally Googled careers in property, and that's how surveying came up. And then I kind of did various different internships. I did an internship in, actually what I did in that exact moment was I wrote a CV and a covering letter, and I sent it to all the local estate agents in Nottingham. Because I was like, I need work experience. I need some kind of experience in property. One of those estate agents came back to me and offered me a job for free, just to get that work experience.
Wow.
And then I leveraged that to get myself an summer internship with Savills in their commercial development team. And then when I was on my year abroad in China, I also got an internship out there for an architectural firm.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah, in Shanghai.
Wow.
It was the best 2 months of my life.
Wow, you smashed it, you've been doing jobs out here.
I've been around.
Wow.
That's why my social media is called The Property Hustle, because I've literally hustled to get myself into property and as far as I've gotten now. But yes, I did all of that, came back from my year abroad, did all the various kind of graduate scheme applications, ended up at the firm where I'm at now, which is JLL, did graduate rotations, and then I qualified as a chartered surveyor 2 years ago. But it was 3 and a bit years ago when I actually started investing in property. So yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell, but it's not really a nutshell.
Wow.
On a tangent, but
that's crazy. I really didn't know that the property journey for you started so early, and that your friend almost gave you the permission to really pursue it. And wow, and now you're at least in my eyes, a very prominent level in that game. For me, if I ever needed property advice, I'd be like, okay, cool. Which professional am I going to seek out? I'm going to go to my girlfriend.
Of course. I got you. I got you, Dami. I got you. It's funny because when I first said that I was going to start like looking at buying property, I set up a Facebook page and a YouTube channel, mainly to keep myself accountable, because I was like, I want to document the journey. But what's happened is, because I've kept those platforms up, people are now, having seen me, you know, get my buy to let and invest in other different creative property investment strategies, they're now coming to me. And I think our group of friends are at an age where most people are now looking to buy their first home or looking to try and get onto the property ladder. And I've been fortunate enough to be able to help quite a lot of my friends, you know, just navigating the process, because it can sometimes be a bit arduous and confusing for no reason. So I've been able to kind of talk them through it, and like they'll go and view a property and then they'll send me the property, be like, what do you think? And because of where I work at jail, I probably shouldn't say this, but I have access to certain systems that
we complete that.
No, so I can just do a further level of due diligence that the average person can't do. So I'll do that, and you know, I'll be like, no, it's okay, the title seems clean, like and I've been able to help out some of my friends, and that's what's then led me to be more of a consultant now. I had a friend of mine who I was helping, and he turned to me, he was like, Faith, I no longer feel comfortable getting all this information from you for free. Like, I want to pay you. And I remember thinking, like, you want to pay me? He was like, yeah, like, you're actually giving me so much knowledge. Like, I want to pay you to help me find the property. And then when I found the property, I want to pay you to manage it. And I was like, oh, great. Like, this is awesome. So it kind of validated everything that I've learned and the knowledge and experience that I've gained, and being able to give back in that way, whether that's on the consultancy side or the mentoring side. It's just been awesome.
That's so sick, man. I think, like, I really felt that moment where the penny dropped, like, oh, like, I'm actually like a fountain of knowledge on this topic now. Like, I've got
like just little things. The other day I was on a call, a woman, she's 26, so woman reached out to me on Instagram and was like, she just bought her first investment property, but needed a bit of like advice as to what to do to it to like add value and stuff. So we ended up having a call, and something that I think is quite normal, because in my day job I do it. So like I basically asked her, I was like, what's the EPC rating of the property? And she didn't know what that was. And for anyone that doesn't know, it's the energy performance certificate. So every property, whether commercial or residential, has to have an energy performance certificate. And currently in the UK, and according to the law, you're not allowed to let a property that has an EPC rating of either F or G. And so because she'd bought this as an investment property and she was going to plan to let it out, one of the questions I asked her was, what's the EPC rating? She said she didn't know. So I quickly went on and downloaded the document. Turns out that it was actually an F. So I said to her, well, the work that you do to the property, you need to bring that standard up to E for even it to be legal for you to let out the property. And that was something she had no idea about. She didn't know, you know. So in that half an hour conversation, I've given her a piece of information that's really going to help her moving forward in her investment journey.
Super valuable, because I can imagine you can get like fined, or some really bad shit can happen if your property's not up to standard.
As a landlord, and this is the thing that people want to get into property but don't realize that property, you have to look at it as a business. You can't be emotional going into it, and then also you have to be up to date and clued up on all of your laws, because let me tell you that this country is in favor of the tenant. Like literally, as a landlord, you hardly have any rights. If your tenant, if you could have the worst tenant in the world that you want to get rid of, but if they want to stay in your property, they have every right to stay. Like the law and the courts will be on their side. So you have to go into it knowing that all of these potential issues could come up. You can't just like go into it willy-nilly thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to collect my rent every month. It's not like that.
I think that actually reminds me of a situation, because my mum owns some rental property in Barking actually, and I remember a few years ago now, you just reminded me, she had a problem with a tenant who basically stayed in the property for a whole year and still owes, so she still owes some of the rent that she didn't pay for the year that she was there.
Do you see what I mean? That's my worst nightmare.
And I remember it stressed my mum out, but she didn't have, Because I remember thinking like, why don't you kick her out? But she was saying to me that you can't just kick.
You can serve notice, but they don't have to leave. Yeah. They do not have to leave if they don't want to. Like, you're actually at the mercy of your tenant. And that's why I think I always tell people that property is a people business. You have to be able to communicate. And that's why I still, to this day, I still self-manage my property, because I want to vet each tenant. I want to look them in the eye and be like, I'm your landlady.
Like, yo.
You know, this is how it's going to be. I want to do the reference checks myself. You can get a managing agent, but I don't know. I've not heard of anybody having a great experience with any one managing agent. You know, often they're just there to collect their rent or whatever. So, and I worked in an estate agency. I've seen how some of these managing agents work. You know, I remember in the estate agent I worked in Nottingham, there were times when tenants would be calling the phone, they wouldn't even pick up. They wouldn't. The tenant would have an issue. They wouldn't pick up until the tenants would have to actually physically come to the office before anything got done.
Yeah.
And I was just like, that is not how I want to be as a landlord. Like, I want to make sure that my tenants are. If the tenants say there's something wrong with the property, I get on it immediately. I'm contacting whoever I need to contact to get it done. And just there's a lot more to it than just buying a property and collecting rent.
I think that's a really good point you made, Faith, because I know there's a big impression in at least in the circles that I've been involved with how owning property works. It's like, you buy the property, you rent it out, and then you just sit back. You can go on holiday anywhere in the world, go to Mexico, go to Dubai, floss while your tenants are paying you rent, and you can just sit back, check on it maybe every few months, like, everything good here, cool. That's the impression of property ownership that I think is peddled around quite a lot from the conversations I've had, but from seeing like my mum's experience and also hearing what you're saying about your experiences and what you've seen, it's pretty clear that, you know, there's a lot of work that goes into it moving forwards, even after you do have the property. Right?
People buy property to try and get passive income, but there's nothing passive about income from property, genuinely. You know, it's not passive because, one, you have to go through all the work of finding the property, doing all those viewings, putting in all those offers to potentially get an offer accepted, and then you've got to, you know, get that property done up, and then you've got to find a suitable agent or manager of the property yourself. So it's not passive. It really isn't. Not in the beginning anyway. You might get to a point where you've got enough properties and you can outsource and systemize your business so that you can be, you know, work away from it and maybe bring someone in to be like the general property portfolio manager for your properties. But if you're not at that stage, which I'm definitely not, it's just, you have to be on it. With that said, though, I don't want it all to be doom and gloom. I will say, so my property, I've had 3 tenants in there so far, and I'd say I've only had really 2 issues of late rent payment, which I managed to resolve, and 1 issue of trying to get a deposit back from a tenant. But other than that, it just kind of sits there, and the money does come through. So
tell us about that first property you bought. I mean, I remember watching the vlog and being like, wow, this is pretty sick on the Property Hustle YouTube channel. I remember watching that vlog, I think maybe it was 2-3 years ago, maybe?
Yeah, it was a while ago. Ago. I was 23 when I started looking.
Okay. And specifically in Nottingham, right?
So I started at first, I was looking in London, and then I quickly realised I could not afford London. And I had a mentor at the time who basically said, well, are there any other areas in the UK that you would feel comfortable investing in? And I thought, well, you know, I studied in Nottingham, lived there for 4 years, worked as an estate agent up there. You know, that's the next possible market that I could potentially buy in. And I knew as soon as I thought about Nottingham, I knew I'd be investing in Radford. I was like, there is no way, because do you know what? I was that person in second year. You know, second year everyone was like looking to live in Lenton, mate. Lenton rents were just astronomical. I literally knew from when Broadgate Park, shout out to anyone that lived in Broadgate Park Halls.
BGP.
BGP. Let me tell you, the stuff that went down off campus, boy. Anyway, what halls were you in again?
St. Peter's Court, SVC.
Yeah, SVC and BGP. We were actually live.
We were lit. We were so lit.
I think I was at your halls more than I was at mine, because like I met like all of them guys.
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
there.
Off of SPC.
SPC was mad. It was mad. Yeah. It was mad. Anyway, so when I was looking for a house to live in for second year, I looked at the rents in Lent and I was like, that's ridiculous. I think rents in Lent at the time were like £90 a week, and then over in Radford it was £60 a week, and it's literally just a road difference. Like you cross over the road and you £20 less in rent.
Yeah.
So I said, well, that's a no-brainer. And the property values were also similar. Like you could, I think in Radford. So my property, I bought it it was on the market for 70,000. Ended up buying it for 69,500. There was a whole story.
Wow.
About that.
Wow. Compared to what I'm seeing in London.
So in London, that's like a deposit. That's like what you need for your deposit.
Legit. If you're not doing Help to Buy, I imagine those are the kind of figures you need.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
a 1-bed flat, let's say zone 2, 3, is like anywhere from 350 to 400,000 pounds in London. In Nottingham, you're looking at like 50k.
Yeah.
Freehold as well, not even leasehold. Some of the you can actually buy a whole house with garden.
That's
for like 100.
That's insane. So sorry, because I do want to talk more about the London property market, but we'll leave that for a little bit later. So yeah, you go looking in Radford, and what's kind of that process?
So funny story. Shout out to David, Mr. Akata. I hope you're listening. David was my G.
David.
So because I was living in London, but David was doing because he'd switched course, I think, and he was still in Nottingham. He was in his final year. So I actually paid him to do my viewings.
Wow.
Yeah.
Shout out David.
Yeah,
wow.
Shout out David, my man David. I went up there. I showed him like how to do viewings. Because basically all I needed was often. So before I go and view a property, I already know whether it's going to work for me in terms of numbers, right? You have to do your due diligence. You have to analyze the deal, understand, okay, if I buy it that much, how much is it going to cost for me to renovate? What will the property value be afterwards? So when he's going to view the property, I've already decided I'm going to put in an offer. So he just goes to show face because the agent needs to see that you've seen the property. Mm-hmm. He then takes pictures of the property. And I told him, like, because this is a tip for anyone who's going out on viewings and viewing properties at the moment. When you go into the property, make sure you look up, make sure you look down, make sure you look behind doors, make sure you look in like the corners, touch the walls as well. Where you see if there's a discoloration in the wall, touch the walls, because often that might be damp. And if the walls feel wet, there's water ingress. Like these are and look for cracks. People go into a property and they're just looking like around, like, oh, cool, but they don't see that crack in the wall that's showing their structural movement. Or do you know what I mean?
Jeez.
Like you've got to really
look. Property, and then it's.
And then you've got to spend money. Exactly.
Oh my God, yeah.
Exactly. So I had David doing my viewings. I think he viewed maybe 10 properties, and I offered on all of them, and only one came back accepted. So that is a lesson in itself, that if you're going to start looking for property, it's particularly for investment purposes, but even if you're just buying your first home, you're going to have to do 100 viewings before you even find one that you like. And then you can't always guarantee your offer is going to get accepted. So you have to always be very militant about the way that you approach house buying, and looking and doing viewings. But yeah, so he did the viewings for me. I offered, got the property, and I went up there and I had the property turned around in a week and I had it let out. So. Oh,
so you still had what kind of things did you have to do to the property to make sure it was ready to be let? Was it stuff to do with the house itself, or just the furnishings? Like what kind of?
So during the conveyancing process, so when I was in the process of buying it, the bank sent their valuer out to do a valuation, and that valuer found damp. So there was damp. But then this is how I finessed it, guys. So I've got a badass solicitor,
Yeah.
Assad, shout out to Assad. He was like, well, my client isn't paying for this damp to be, you know, removed. The seller didn't want to pay. The seller didn't want to pay. So my solicitor said, okay, if you pay, then it's got to come off the property value. And that's how we managed to knock the price down a little bit, because I paid for the damp. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
So that kind of worked itself out. So I did that, and then I had to just do a light cosmetic refurbishment. So I painted the walls, the ceilings. I put new floor in the kitchen, new floor in the bathroom. But I kept everything light because, I mean, you know the area of Radford. You know the kind of tenants that live there. I mean, it's a family type area, but most families will come in and want to put their own spin on a property. So this is why I always say you have to remain a little bit removed from your investment property. You just need to do the bare minimum, make it look nice, presentable for people to come and view and actually want to live there, but then be flexible, because a tenant might come in and say, actually, I want to paint the walls, you know, fuchsia instead of magnolia. And then, you know, as a landlord, you can't unreasonably withhold consent, but you have to just make sure in your lease agreement that there's a clause that says any sort of changes made to the property has to be put back to its original state when the tenant hands you back the property. But other than that, yeah, you just gotta, because tenants, oh my god, tenants. Oh, I had a tenant. The way some people live.
So, actually, a question on that. I can see that there's one particular tenant you've got on your mind, and you're thinking,
yeah, they're long gone now, but
so,
they didn't have a toilet seat. I went to go and check up on the property, and the toilet seat wasn't there. I was like, where's my toilet seat? Like, I kid you not, they were using the toilet, like the toilet bowl. There was no seat.
Oh.
I said, hey. And they had a young child.
Oh my god.
And they had a young child. But you know what? I just had to laugh it off. I was like, it's all right, £10 from Wilco, I can replace that. It's not a problem. But it just,
it irked you. I mean, it irked me. I didn't even see it. Oh. Just planting your bare bum on the
bowl.
Oh.
And you've got to have a big bum, because otherwise you're falling straight into the bowl.
No, that's nuts. That is nuts.
It's a madness. It's actually a madness. Anyway, really, sorry, you had a question.
So, because from the little I've seen in that like property renting world, let's say, when you bought your property, did you know exactly the type of tenants you were going to rent out to, in terms of, you know, is it like single occupancy and then HMO and is family different? Like I don't know. Could you shed some light on that?
Yeah. So I always tell my mentees, you have to start with the end in mind. When you're looking to buy an investment property, you have to know what type of tenant you're going to want, because that will influence your location as well, and the type of property you buy. So personally, I prefer to go for professional tenants. So I like to say there's different types of tenants. You could have a professional tenant, you could go for the student market, or you could go for like local housing authority tenants. Most investors like the professional market because you can almost guarantee they're going to have an income and therefore will be able to pay you rent. Yeah. However, coronavirus. I had to say it. Cardi B. I had to say it. What has actually happened now, whereas back in the day professionals used to be that the tenant that, you know, would hardly ever default on their rent, coronavirus has put a lot of people into furlough, so people are getting less money income coming in, or being made redundant, so they've got no income coming in. So professional tenants have gone from being very secure type of tenants to have for your investment properties to actually being very risky, and most landlords that have professionals are having to half the rent or work with their tenants to try and set up a rent payment schedule. Students, universities got shut like 2 months ago, so people with student tenants are having to battle with students wanting their money back for the term that they're not going to be in the property, and the people that are actually probably having a bit more success are the ones that house, you know, DHS or benefits tenants or local housing authority tenants, because the council covers their rent, and the council is probably, you know, the most secure at the moment in terms of rent payment.
Wow.
So it's all kind of flipped on its head a little bit.
Crazy. That is crazy.
Mad. Absolutely mad. But anyway, I say all of that to say, yes, you should have in mind who you want to put in your property. If you're going to choose professionals, you want your property to be in a good location in terms of communication links into the town centre or into the city, wherever those professionals are going to be working. You might choose a strategy that, like, for example, serviced accommodation. So your end market are either going to be tourists or potentially contractors or potentially professionals that only work in or live in your property for 5 days of the week and then they go home for the weekend. So having an idea of the type of tenant you want in there will then dictate the type of property you have and where you're gonna locate it. So for me, I went for professionals. I didn't want to do students because I'd been a student in Nottingham. I knew just how students treat properties. I didn't want to go for a house, an HMO, which is a house in multiple occupation, because the more HMOs are great for return because you get so much money out of one single property because you've got multiple people renting the rooms. But you have to take into account that the more people that are in the property, the more likely there's going to be maintenance, you know, more maintenance you're going to have to put. You're going to have to provide cleaners, you know, things get broken, you know, electricity and stuff as well. Because if you have an HMO, often most people that live in shared accommodation are used to having bills all inclusive. So you as a landlord have got to cover those bills. Your tenants might run up those bills. You know, there's all of these other concerns you have to think about when you've got multiple people living in one property. So I didn't want to go down that route. I wanted to go down the vanilla, buy to let, let it and forget it type strategy. So I've just got a 2-bed property, got a family. I tried to go for families, young families that can live in it, you know, sometimes for a year, sometimes more. So yeah, you always have your end tenant in mind before you buy.
Okay, I think that will help a lot of people because again, just speaking from my own experience, a lot of the conversation I've seen around property is just to get the property first and then ask questions later. But I think having that in mind will help a lot of people who've been running with that mentality of just getting something rather than actually assessing what they want to do with it once they've got it. So from that experience, obviously you must have felt sick, amazing getting the first property, and then even better once the tenants have moved in. What have been your experiences just generally, and then also with that property too, over the years?
I think what I've realized is I'm someone that, so my whole reason for even buying that property in the first place was the fact that I wanted to be a developer. Often if you're going to be a developer and accessing development finance, you have to be an experienced investor or landlord, i.e. own property. That's why I ended up buying that property. What I learned from that was, one, the buy-in process, it's not as hard as people make it out to be. It's long when you're in it. It took me like 6 months to buy that property, from having my offer accepted to actually getting the keys in hand. It took 6 months.
Okay.
So the actual buy-in process, so many things can crop up, particularly during the conveyancing side of things. When your solicitor goes off and does what they do, things could pop up. There could be a covenant on the title. There could be someone, you know, often like title registers, that basically the register that shows who owns the land and how much they bought it for, when they bought it for, you know, what bank has first charge on it and stuff. Sometimes, particularly if you've got like a leasehold property, there will be clauses in that or schedules in that title that says things like, you know, you can't operate, you can't do this on this piece of land, you can't do that on this piece of land. If you do this, you have to pay this person from like back in, and it's mad. There's actually a lot of intricacies to it, and that's why you need a solicitor, because they can handle all of that. So I learned about that, like the intricacies of that. I also learned like patience, like being patient with tenants, with just actually getting through the buying process. I've learned, what else have I learned? I don't think I want to be a professional. I don't want a property business, investment business. I want to look at the bigger picture, because the same headache that it takes to buy a single let property is the same headache that you'll probably experience doing a development. So for me, I'm like, I'd rather do the bigger project and have even more of a headache, but then come out at the end with millions of pounds in my pocket, as opposed to, you know, £500 a month in rent or whatever.
From like multiple different, yeah. Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
that's interesting. That's really interesting.
But yeah, I think another thing I'd say I'd learned was looking outside the box. Often, particularly if you're from London, the first thing you think of is, let me buy in London. But London is, for a lot of people, very expensive. And just think, like, for the property I bought in Nottingham, I think I spent a total of about £20,000, between 20 and £23,000 all in. And that's a freehold property that I own. I was able to do that much quicker than I would have done if I was trying to save up to buy a flat in London. So think outside the box, looking at it. There are some areas in the UK, like, for example, Hull. You can buy a whole 2-bed house for like 30k.
What? £30,000 for a 2-bedroom house?
Wales as well. Wales, mate. The property prices in Wales, certain areas anyway, like, you genuinely look outside of London, be open, but also invest in areas that you know, or at least you know someone that knows that area. Like, there's no point you buying in, I don't know, Devon or something, because one, you know, if there's something wrong with the property and you have to go out there, it's going to take you 7 hours to get down the coast, you know. It's great that I've got my property in Nottingham, but every year when a tenant moves out and I have to go up there, it's a 2.5-hour drive, and I've got to literally take a day out, go and, you know, get it turned over, do a light touch up on terms of painting and stuff like that, do the viewings, get a tenant in there, and then come back. So if you can, pick somewhere that is relatively good, easy for you to travel to, get to know the location, research it like to the nth degree, and then build up a power team, a team of people that you can rely on. If something goes wrong and you're not there, you can call up that plumber or call up that electrician to go in and to fix the problem. And then they send you an invoice and you pay them off.
So just on that point of building up a solid team, how was that for you? Like, how did you do that? Was it through people you already knew or that had like solid contacts, or was it literally just trial and error? Like, what was the
It was a bit of both. So I always advise looking for recommendations, seeking recommendations. There's a Facebook group called UK Property Traders, and whenever I needed a job doing, I'd post my job in that group and just say, you know, any recommendations for a builder in Nottingham, recommendations for a plumber in Nottingham, and people would then comment their various recommendations, and then I would call up each of those people and, you know, book them to come and do a quote. I also used a site called mybuilder.com, where you can post the job that you want to do. Like, say you need tiling in your bathroom done, or you need someone to do your gas safety check, post it on that site, and then different tradesmen will basically like your job and ask to quote on the job for you. And I always say, get a minimum of 3 quotes, because different tradesmen will give you different prices. Like, they will vary significantly. If you're investing outside of London and you're from London or you live in London, the prices outside of London in terms of tradesmen, they're actually a lot cheaper. But sometimes, if they find out you're a London investor, they sometimes try and up the price. So that's why it's good to get a range of quotes, because then you can actually see, okay, this one's reasonable, that one isn't reasonable. Sometimes a tradesman will quote you a stupidly high quote because they probably either don't want the job or have got too much going on to do the job that you're asking for, but they don't want to lose face. They're still going to come and quote you, because if you do accept their quote, they're getting paid double than what they would usually get. So that's why you always get a range of quotes and assess each of them, and don't just go with the cheapest one. Ask to see evidence of previous work, photographs or whatever. Read their reviews. If you've they might have a website, or they might be on mybuilder.com. Read the reviews and what other people have said about them, because you want to know that they're going to arrive on time, they're going to do what they say they're going to do, and then they're going to leave the place in a tidy state. You don't want builders that are just going to leave for the day and just leave a whole mess and you have to clean it up. So yeah.
Wow.
Research your tradesmen.
A lot of things to consider, right? A
Yeah.
lot of things to consider. Yeah. It's really interesting though. I'm loving it. This is like an education. I'm taking a lot on board. Like, okay, because for me personally, I'm not sure whether I will live in London myself or live in the UK as I get older. I'm not sure. I'm in this place where in the next couple of years I might try and look to live overseas or elsewhere. So I haven't looked into property as a thing, but with you speaking about it, and I'm kind of just getting interested, like, okay, so these are the things I'll have to consider.
Yeah, definitely. I've got a friend of mine, the same friend that said he wanted to pay me for my advice. He also doesn't think he's going to live in London long term, but recognizes the value of investing in property or putting your money. Because think about it, the interest rates at the moment in the bank, like if you leave your money in the bank, you're getting 0.1% return, if that, on your savings. But if you put that same money into a property, I'll give you a live example. So the property that I bought, I spent about 20k in it, right? That 20k over the past 3 years has yielded me roughly 15k. So in one more year, I will have made back the 20k that I invested in that property. Now, if I'd had 20k sitting in my bank at 0.1%, hang on a minute, let's do some quick math. Hang on, so it's 1 point. This is where thingies, David does his quarantine maths. Okay, so I would have made, let's say 22 times 1.1 times 1.1. So I'd be on 26. So I would have made 6,000, I think, on the property in 3 years. If on the 20k, if I'd left it in the bank, but I've made compound. 15 from having it in property. So that's essentially the difference. And I think, it's better to have your money in an asset than it is to just be sitting in a bank. So whether you're doing stocks, shares, commodities, whatever, Bitcoin, whatever it might be, making your money work for you is ultimately what everyone should be doing, personally. And I don't think we are taught, everyone, and then particularly like the Black community, are taught financial education really in school. You're taught to basically become a worker bee. You're not taught how to invest.
Yeah, I mean, one of the big things that you realize coming into adulthood, right, is that basically we weren't prepared for this. We weren't prepared adequately for just the things that we have to do in everyday life. So we're trying to find ways to learn that, and I think through channels like yours, it's a really good, excellent resource for people to tap into and just gain some knowledge from it. Obviously, I remember when you said earlier in the conversation that when you started the property hustle, it was mainly to keep yourself accountable. It seems to have developed a lot more from that now. So what's your aim with the channel, and where do you see it taking you now, and what kind of things do you want to do with it, or have you been doing with it to build it up to this point?
So I think, so basically when I was younger, I really, really wanted to go into like media and like acting and things like that. But because we already had one actor in the family, my brother, my mum was like, you're not going to go be an actor. You're going to go and actually put your head in books and study. So I've always been I've liked sort of presenting and talking to people and, working. I'd love to, at some point, build the channel to the point that eventually I kind of want to take myself out of it a little bit, and I want it to be almost like a show, like a how do I explain it? Like a channel that hosts different series. You know, like I want to have, like, at the end of the day, like, I think your hustle doesn't just have to be property. It can be in any form of you know, finance, really, whether it's stock, shares, whatever. And I'd love to have like different presenters presenting on different types of, you know, financial ways to make your money work for you, essentially. What I found, so I started the channel just as accountability. Now I've got to the point that I'm having people reach out to me, and I've actually gotten a few people who are now wanting to invest with me, because they've watched my journey and watched, you know, everything that I've done. I've now got some credibility behind me, and they've come to me and they've said, you know, what's your next deal? I've got X amount of money, you know, I want to invest it with you. What kind of returns could you get me, etc. So I went from not having or wondering how people even buy property, because, you know, who has the money to buy property, and now I've got people wanting to give me their money so that I can buy property. So it's weird how it's flipped around, but I want to continue to build on that and build the channel and just educate people out there on property. That's all I really want to do.
Wow, that's incredible that you putting out content has led to all those opportunities. Because I was going to ask you, like, what kind of opportunities have come from that, and people have come to you saying, yeah, I want to invest with you. That's really strong.
It's scary as well, because I'm like, okay, this is a new realm. Because before, when it was my money, it was what it was, and if I lose it, I lose it. But when you're investing other people's money, there's a whole level of due diligence and professionalism that you need to do, essentially. Like, you're then accountable to your investors, and you have to update them, let them know what's going on, the good, the bad, and just and if you're promising them a particular type of return, you have to try and get them that return. So
there's
scary times.
Added pressure with that situation. As good as it is, there's pressure. Can you talk on any of those investments that you've kind of created? Can you?
So at the moment, I'm looking at, so what I think, and I'm going to try and put a webinar together actually about the type of opportunities that are going to come out of the whole coronavirus craziness that we're in. But the way I see it is that at the moment, if you have cash sitting in the bank, if you're a cash buyer, you're probably going to get a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of opportunities for you right now in terms of property. Once lockdown lifts, there's going to be a lot of businesses that realize that they can actually operate more flexibly, and they might not need as much space, so much office space as they're already currently taking, because they can probably get most of their workers to work from home. So that will leave a lot of potentially empty office blocks or retail stores, or, you know, all these kind of small businesses and stuff. And at the moment in the UK, the government had there's something called permitted development rights, PDR, which allows developers to convert certain types of assets, so sometimes office buildings, sometimes pubs, sometimes retail stores, into housing or into like flats and stuff. So there's going to be a lot of opportunity for, they call it commercial conversions, so converting a commercial property into a residential property. So I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities for that. And I actually had a friend of mine from church, you know.
Okay.
These church people, you know. A friend of mine from church. They're
so on it. But by the way, some church people, they're really on their hustle, you know. Outside of the hours of 11 to 1 of service. Really about it.
They're so about it. Anyway, so he messaged me and was like, I've been thinking, I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity in terms of commercial conversions. Is that something that you do? And I said, well, it actually is. And commercial conversions isn't something new. It's been around for a while. But I think there's going to be a lot more of it coming out of the back end of this. Anyway, so he said, you know, because I was like, oh, I didn't know you were in the market for an investment opportunity. He was like, oh yeah, I am, you know, keep me posted if you find anything. I was like, okay, cool. Like, that's one person I'm looking for. I've had another lady message me who I met last year. I spoke at an event last year, and she contacted me off the back of that. and we've been like liaising ever since, and met up a couple times, just like bonded, just as friends really.
Yeah.
And then a couple of weeks ago, she called me and she was like, "Oh, you know, I know that you're going into developments or trying to do developments. Like, you know, tell me about some of your deals. Like, I have money. I want to invest with you." And that just came completely out of the blue and very naturally. So I think for anyone that's wanted to get into property and thinks they can't because they don't have money, that is definitely not the case. As long as you build your knowledge, build yourself like credibility, put yourself out there on social media, you can literally network your way into getting like a joint venture partner, someone that can put the money up while you do all of the work. You know, if you're sitting there or listening to this podcast right now and thinking, you know, where am I going to get money to buy? Family and friends. Start with your family and friends. Those were first. So the majority of people that have come to me asking me about property have been my family and friends because they've seen me doing what I do. So if you start telling everyone who will listen what you do, when it comes to, you know, they might then realize, oh, actually, this person knows what they're doing. Let me give them my money. Let them invest for me because I don't know the first thing about property. And that's how you attract joint venture investors.
Wow. That's so sick, you know.
Yeah.
Hearing all the opportunities that have come out of you, like putting your content out. Because you know what, I'm gonna say this now, like when you came out with the property hustle and everything, I was really inspired by that. Not just the property angle, but just you being able to put yourself out into the world and just make content.
Yeah, it's scary though. Even to this day, like I have to like be very militant about putting the content out there because it's not easy. You have to come up with the video, record it, edit it, like, you know, because you have the podcast, and then you have to be consistent as well. So I'll tell you this, that I've had, the channel's been like on for about 3 years now, but it was this year that I decided to actually be consistent. And I started, particularly now that I've been on furlough, I've been putting out or trying to put out 2 videos a week. I kid you not, in the last 3 months, I've had like over 200 new subscribers.
Wow.
Because I've just been consistent.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is mad. I wish I'd been as consistent back in the day. I'd probably be in like, I don't know, somewhere in the you know, thousands in terms of subscribers. But yeah, it's all about consistency really, and not being afraid to just talk.
Speak your truth. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I really take a lot from that. So thank you, because you've been one of the people that's inspired me to start myself. So
yay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So we do have some questions because we do have quite a few, which is why I want to get them to you and see what you think. So one of them is actually my own.
Okay.
Before I start with everyone else's. So my question is, with the London property market, what's going on? Like what is happening? What, in your opinion, from what you've seen, from what the you know, what the current climate, like even considering the current climate and maybe some opportunities that might come out of it, like what's happening that's making it so expensive for born and bred Londoners? What is it?
Do you know what it is? The property market as a whole tends to go in cycles. So you have peaks and troughs. And our last major trough, was the economic crisis back in 2008, where prices just dropped dramatically. And everyone knows the reason why. People might have watched the Big Short or whatever. So from 2008, property prices started to kind of, dropped dramatically. And then I guess from 2009, 2010, started picking up again. Often the reason why market values are ever affected is because of macroeconomic factors. So Brexit did a number on on property values as well. And funnily enough, people thought that property values would drop this year mainly because of Brexit and stuff, but coronavirus, nobody could have planned for Corona. Nobody could have. And if anything, this could be seen as a potential correction in the values, in property values. So I think this is actually a good time to start preparing yourself to potentially buy. Genuinely.
So when you say correction, is that a correction from the exorbitant market values to something a little bit more affordable?
Yes.
Even like across the board?
Well, yeah, I personally think so. I think that
Wow.
because the property market works is if I buy a house today for £100,000, tomorrow someone could buy the property next door to me and it's going to be relatively in the same sort of value. But when you have a market where there's a lot of a lot of demand, so loads of people wanting to buy but not enough supply, because I think you always hear over the media, you know, we're there's a housing shortage, you know, there's not enough houses, etc., etc. Because isn't enough supply for the amount of demand, people are, or it was back in the day, people are overpaying or paying more because they really want to get their, you know, foot on the ladder or really want that property, which meant that sellers were loving it. You know, they were getting, they were selling their properties for much higher than they anticipated because people really wanted their properties. I think we're going to come out of Corona in the flip side, where there's going to be actually a lot of properties on the market, but many people holding back because they're trying to see, okay, well, when are we going to reach the bottom of the market? Or when, you know, there might be a recession, people are going to hold back. People might be made redundant, so might not be able to afford to buy. So then there's actually going to be a lot of supply, but maybe not as much demand. So that would be a great time to strike, because then it's more of a buyer's market. You can go in and almost dictate the price that you want, because the seller's just going to want to get rid of their property. So yeah, so the values move or go up because of the way that the supply and demand chain works. Essentially, when there's more demand than supply, values tend to be higher, and when there's more supply than demand, values tend to drop because people need to drop their values in order to get their properties sold. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
That made sense.
Yeah, I think for most people listening, that should make sense. I think the point of the prices dropping should, if you need to rewind a few minutes to listen to that bit again, you should, just to understand that, because
I think what a lot of people are going to try and do, particularly risk averse people, is try and wait, because they're going to think, okay, if the values are going to drop, let me wait until it drops, and let me wait until it's like at the bottom of the market and buy right at the bottom. Truth is, no one can predict when the bottom of the market is. And I live by the motto, don't wait to buy property and wait. So wherever we are in the property cycle, if you're buying property, as long as you run your numbers and make sure that you stress test to see, okay, if interest rates were to rise, can you still afford to pay off your mortgage? Or will the rent that you're receiving still be able to pay off the mortgage, even if your interest rates rise?
Yeah.
If that is the case, then you shouldn't have any problem in buying that property and riding out the market as and when it flips and changes. Do you see what I mean? So if you're someone who's trying to wait for the bottom of the market, you're never going to buy, because you're always going to be, and then you're going to miss it, and property values are going to start going up, and you'll be like, oh damn it, I missed it. Do you know what I mean? So you can't anticipate these things. You really can't.
Wow, that's proper interesting. I didn't think of the correction of the market before. I didn't think that was coming. I thought we were in too solid of a position.
Yeah.
As like the housing market here. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say London is in a little bit of a bubble, in that if you buy in London, more often than not, you're kind of protected. The value of your property might dip, but over time it will kind of correct itself and begin to rise. I think London is very popular as well in terms of foreign investment. So when there is a lot of foreign money being pumped into London, into the property market, of course other property values are going to increase in line with that. So yeah, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy when you think about, like, some people that bought their houses, you know, our grandparents or whatever, that bought for like £3,000, and you're like,
oh my god,
that's not even a solicitor's fee these days.
Jesus, oh my god.
Yeah.
I even remember Akala, shout out to Akala. He was talking about when his grandma first moved to the UK. She was a cleaner, so obviously her salary wasn't like super high, and she was
Yeah.
able to afford to buy a house in like King's Cross
Yeah.
for a few £1,000. And then you compare to now, like you could be working in a pretty, you know, let's say high up profession, and buying is still way out of the question for you because of the difference in from value to what you earn. So
yeah,
it will be interesting to see what happens when that correction.
I mean, exactly. And I think there's just this is such a detailed, it's a difficult question to answer, because there's so many things that impact value, and particularly with property. You touched upon income. That's a very big thing. When you're going to buy property, a bank is going to look at what you're earning, you know, and then it's going to look at, if it's an investment property, they'll also look at what the property could be generating in income. And those are the two things that they assess you on when you are buying. So often this is why I always say, if you're even thinking about buying, speak to a broker, contact a mortgage broker. Most mortgage brokers will have will give you a kind of free consultation call, where you can tell them about your circumstances, and they can basically quickly do the maths and tell you what you can potentially afford to buy, or what value of property you can afford. I think the calculation, if you want to do this at home, is if you take your salary, what you're earning on an annual basis, and multiply that out by 4.5, that will give you roughly the value of the type of property that you could actually afford to buy in terms of lending. Because banks will always make sure that because they want to know, as a bank, they want to know that if you default on your loan, they want to know that you can pay your loan back, right? They want to know you can keep up with your mortgage payments, and often they do that by knowing how much you earn, and making sure that how much you're earning is 4.5 times the value of the property, is at least 4.5 times your salary, and that can then, they basically run their numbers and whatnot, and then make sure that you can afford a mortgage, essentially. So often it's about what you're earning. So speak to a broker, be honest with them, say, this is how much I'm earning, this is how much I'm actually spending. Most brokers will actually go deep. Things like having your car on finance. All these stunters out here who are renting, do you know what I mean? Getting one of these cars on finance. If you have your car on finance, that's going to impact, because that in itself is debt. So that's going to impact what you can afford, the mortgage that you can afford. Because the bank's going to look at that and say, well, are you paying off your car finance on a regular basis? Given that you've got all of these outgoings and this much income, you're not going to also then be able to afford a mortgage on top of that. You see what I mean? So things like getting your credit score up. Some people are afraid to be in debt and have never gotten credit cards, but often that also puts you in a bad position, because a bank will look at you and be like, you've never had credit before, you've never proven that you can pay off debt. And student loan unfortunately doesn't count, but you haven't proven you can pay off debt. So that's why often, if you have no credit score, the best way to get a credit score is to get a credit card, use it, and pay it off, all of it off on a monthly basis. That immediately improves your credit score. Things like paying bills, having your name on utility bills and paying on a regular basis, just making sure, those are the little things you can do now to get yourself into a mortgageable position, essentially.
Wow, that's nice. Some good
A
value
lot came
there.
out of that one question, didn't it?
Yeah, wow. And there's so many. So I'm gonna try and ask the most interesting ones.
Yeah. Any that you don't get to ask, you can message them to me, and I'll do like a Instagram live or something. We can do like an Instagram live. Why don't we do that?
Okay. Yeah.
We can
That could be quite good, actually.
Yeah.
So with the questions I have, let's see which one interesting. Okay, cool. So this person asks, Neji asks, yeah,
nobody.
He asks, are there any reasons why it might not be worth buying a property and instead renting?
Yes, 100. Oh my gosh. So I am both a landlord and a tenant, because I rent where I live. I am a big advocate for, the reason why it's good to rent is if, for example, in your situation, you might not necessarily look to be living in London anytime soon. So when you rent, that's a lot more flexible. You know, you'll usually sign a lease agreement that lasts maybe a year. And then after that, you can choose to either stay or move. So when you are renting, you're more flexible and can, you know, dip in and out of a city or wherever, or different locations. And the thing with buying property, you are taking on debt. That is a big commitment, a big financial commitment. So often, if you can't afford to buy, you just can't afford. If you can't afford to pay off the debt, you just can't afford it. So I genuinely think for some people, renting is the better way. And in a lot of European countries, like a lot of European countries don't understand why in the UK it's like it's everyone's goal to own property, because a lot of them in Europe, it's just you rent. Like no one really wants to buy the way in the UK. It's kind of ingrained in you, you know, go to school, get a good job, buy a property, and that's it, you're set. When in reality, once you buy a property, people think their properties are assets. They're actually liabilities. Because if you lose your job and you can't pay the mortgage on your property, best believe the bank is taking that property back. Do you know what I mean? You are getting repossessed.
Wow. And you lose your equity, right?
Yeah. Like the bank will, and then you might even end up having to continue to pay off that debt, even after the property's been taken off of you, because you still owe the bank. Yeah.
They can take the property and you still have to pay them after.
Yeah.
Oh shit! I didn't know this.
So the way that a mortgage works, a bank will lend. So you will put up, you know, let's say 10% of the property's value. And the bank will put up the remaining 90, right? If for any reason you can't, and let's say you bought the property for £100,000, so you put in 10k, the bank put in 90k. Let's say you lose your job, you can't pay the mortgage payments anymore. The bank decides to repossess your property. For them to try and get their money back, they're going to put the property in auction to try and flog it and sell it so they can get their money back. If at auction that property doesn't sell for 100k, let's say it sells for 50k because of the way the market is, that's 50. There's basically negative equity that you still owe the bank that remaining 50k.
Oh shit!
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. Wow. Because in my head, I just thought that once it's been taken back from you, then you know that's it. But
they will sell it to try and make some of the money back.
Yeah.
If they don't make the money back, anything that the shortfall, you still have to pay.
You still owe, and then you've lost the property anyway.
Yeah.
Oh my God! Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So
it's not something you do lightly, for sure. You have to, and that's why you stress test it. And because at the moment interest rates are so low, so the mortgage that you'll be paying right now, you know, if interest rates were to rise dramatically, which people don't think they're going to, if they did rise, the interest on your mortgage payment is going to increase. So you always have to be sure that, let's say interest rates increase to 5%, 10%, can your salary still cover your mortgage payments? That's what you have to ask yourself when you're going in to buy.
Yeah, because the reason why I think it's a good question is because I used to work in like Lloyd's Bank in their like mortgages department, and we only got a small insight into like the mortgage side of things. So I was dealing with more like emails and information of the people rather than the actual mortgage information. But one of the things I noticed was people defaulting on their mortgages a lot more than I expected. I thought it was such a, you know, a minuscule concept of it. Like it was, you had to be ridiculously unlucky to default. But actually a lot of people can find themselves in that position.
And that's why we ended up in the economic crisis that we ended up in 2008, because a lot of, and this is the maddest thing is, a bank wants to lend you money because that's how they make their money. A bank makes money. So you put your money in savings in the bank, right?
Yeah.
And the bank offers you, but the bank will say, okay, if you give your money to us, we're going to offer you a 0.1% return. How's the bank going to do that they need to invest themselves to get that return. And the investments they're making is putting your money into mortgages. So lending the money out and getting the interest back from those people is how the bank makes its money. So a bank often, and this is super crazy. So I used to work in my valuation department, and often a borrower would approach. So when a borrower approaches a bank for money, that bank will hire an independent valuer, which is what I do, to go and view the property, value it, and basically say if we think it is suitable for loan security, if we think the bank should lend on it. There have been occasions when we have looked at a property and the bank wants us to say that it is suitable because they want to lend that money to make interest to then be able to service their clients. Yeah. So a bank is always going to want to lend you money and try and and this is where people just don't realize that, you know, a bank wants to lend you money because then they're making interest. They're making money on the money they lend you.
Wow. So they will sometimes push the boundaries to be able to.
Well, they're gonna do their tests, but ultimately you have to do even more rigid. Like your tests need to be even more detailed, so that you need to understand for yourself that you're going to be able to cover it. Because a bank will be super nice to you when they're lending the money, but when they're coming to collect on their payments, they're not going to care. They're actually not going to care. They'll be like, because they've got first charge. So also, this is another thing. Yes, you own your property, but at the same time, actually, if you default on your property, like the bank owns your property, if you've got a mortgage, really, because they've got the first charge on it. So if anything happens, they're the ones that need to get paid back first. Then they'll come for you. And this is why there's shows like If You Can't Pay, We'll Take It Away. Like they will they will come and fight. Genuinely, if you're so sometimes it is better to rent than to buy. But if you are buying, make sure you can afford it today and you can afford it potentially in the future. So stress test and run your numbers to understand that you can actually pay off that mortgage, even if you lost your job or let's say your salary got cut in half. Could you still afford it?
Yeah, so those are the conditions of the stress testing, right? So losing the job, savings, interest rates going up, kind of accounting for those things.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Wow. I think that's going to help a lot of people because I know I can speaking for myself and potentially you and others listening. Like you said earlier about the UK, there is a lot of pressure, I feel, of, oh, you know, you need to save up to buy a house, get the house, this kind of mantra is being drummed into us. But these are some big things to consider because life happens and things happen where suddenly you're not earning as much as you were before, or something else happens in life that means you have to shell out more money. Yes. And so you don't have as much money to pay for this thing, and just so many things can happen. Things can happen, and you know, you need to account for this. I know something that's quite common is a lot of people do buy out of their means, and that can happen with property. So I think this is
this is an important message that I want people to take away. You make your money on property when you buy, not when you sell. So when you're looking for property in the market, but I personally, I'm not saying you have to do this, but I would advise not buying a new build property. Because if you're buying a new build property, the value that you pay, one, is going to be high because it's new build, and two, when you come to resell it, no one's going to pay more for it than when you bought it new. Think about it like when you buy a new car. When you come to sell that car, it's not going to be worth the value that you bought it for. It's going to depreciate. That's the same concept with new build properties. Often people buy new build because they're like, oh, it's shiny, it's new, it's all nice and fresh. When they come to sell it on, the value of their property is devalued. I would always say, go for a property, look for the ugliest property on the best street, you know, because you want to buy a property where you can add value, you know, a property that maybe is a little bit run down. Maybe you could, you know, it's a 2-bed and maybe you can do an extension or a loft conversion and make it 3 beds. Because then when you come to sell it, potentially when you move, you're selling it at a higher value. You've added that value to it so you can sell it for more. Do you see what I mean? Like, I think people buy beyond their means, you know, see these shiny new build houses, use various schemes, you know, help to buy, staircasing, shared ownership, whatever, to just, because they're so desperate to get onto the property market. And then they find that they're stuck, you know, with a property that they can't sell, or if they do sell, they're going to sell it for less than what they bought it for, and that means they're going to owe the bank the difference.
Oh my God. And then they're in that situation.
Exactly. Exactly. So buy with the thought in mind. And the way to check, so basically, if you're buying a property through an agent, the minute you see a property on Rightmove, always have in your head that it's probably being marketed for more than what it's actually worth. And the way that you check that the property's market value, the true market value of a property, is to look at how much properties of its similar nature. So if you're buying a 2-bed flat, look at what the other 2-bed flats on that road sold for. That will tell you what the actual market value of the property is. Because an agent will always inflate the price because they're going to get paid for the more that they sell it for. So always look for the true market value and offer at that price, and don't go any higher.
I think this is gonna help a lot of people, Faith. Like, this is gonna, like, really, really, it's gonna help a lot of people who are misinformed about what it is they're entering. Because I think that's something that you've probably seen over the years. It's the case, like, hundreds, thousands of times over. Wow, good question, Neji. I'm glad you opened up that one. So another one that we have. So what are the major risks that you've taken yourself in the property journey, if there have been any?
I mean, I think buying a property in itself is risky. It was I tell you what was really risky was offering on a property when I didn't actually have the full deposit ready. I would not advise people doing this. So what actually happened was, I'd offered on a property. I think I had probably about a third of the money saved and ready to buy, but I didn't have the remainder. So I actually got my brother to loan me, like, not even loan me, to basically transfer me the money that I needed, so that I could send basically my bank statement to the agent, so that they knew, okay, this is a serious buyer, she can actually afford to buy. That's when my offer got accepted. I then gave my brother his money back, and then, like I said before, it took almost 6 months to actually complete the purchase. So within those 6 months, I'd actually saved up the money that I needed to exchange on the property. But I would not advise doing that at all.
Yeah. So in that situation, if the offer gets accepted and you don't have the deposit, like, what does it just null and void the transaction? Like, what happens in that situation?
You can finesse it as best as you can, really, because you're not obligated to buy the property until you've exchanged contracts. So between getting your offer accepted and before you exchange, that is your window to basically get all of the money ready, if it wasn't already ready before. You know, you can potentially be gifted the deposit by your, you know, a friend, family members or whatever, but they need to basically sign a letter, and the bank needs to be happy with the fact that someone is gifting you the deposit and you're not, you know, the deposit isn't coming directly from you. But yeah, there are possibilities where you can get an offer accepted and not actually have all of the money ready. That was a big risk.
Wow. Yeah, that's a pretty big risk, but I mean, it paid off in the end. It worked. But yeah, you wouldn't advise.
No, not at all. But and then also as well, if you are looking to buy, the most common risk is that you get an offer accepted, you're moving along the process, and then someone comes and gazumps you, offers, you know, higher on the property, and if the seller chooses to go with the seller isn't obligated to go with you. If a higher offer comes in during the process, the agent has to tell their client, the seller, that this new offer has come in. And if the seller wants to go with that new offer, you're basically, if you've paid any money for brokerage fees, if you've paid any money for surveys, if you've paid any money for solicitors' fees, you're going to lose all of that. and you have to start
Oh,
again.
you
Yeah.
lose the money that you've paid in the process already if somebody just...
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Unless you offer more, I guess, or is it...
Yeah, exactly. Unless you then offer more, but you don't want to be in a bidding situation. Yeah.
Wow.
So I always say, have some money saved up and have a contingency fund as well. Because you might not, the first property that you get an offer accepted on might not actually be the one you end up buying if someone comes and like gazumps you.
Wow. Yeah, these are some real gems, you know. I didn't even know about this. Wow.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
basically, you really need to be prepared. You need to be
Yes.
prepared.
Yes.
This is not a willy-nilly journey.
Nope.
It's
Not
not
at
a
all.
willy-nilly journey. You need to
No,
have
no, no.
the contingency plan, not just
Yeah.
the plan, the contingency plan, and the
Yeah.
contingency plan for the contingency plan.
Contingency.
Wow. Because
Yeah.
all I'm hearing is, okay, yeah, you can get involved, but you know, along the way, you could take some L's. You could take some L's
Yeah.
just because of the way the process works.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's so annoying. It's actually so annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but it's really good because again, I just feel like this is gonna help a lot of people understand the situation, and it's not just, yeah, I'm gonna buy a house. It's, well, are you ready? Are you
Yeah.
ready?
Yeah.
Are you ready?
Financial readiness.
Are you ready?
Important.
No, this is good. So another question that we have. So I mean, I think you kind of touched on it earlier, but maybe there's a bit more of a process that someone else could follow.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is, when you buy a house as a developer,
Yeah.
how do you get the initial capital to start buying?
So there are what I've realized is that there are a lot of ways. There is money. Let me tell you, there is money out there.
Hey.
So I think what this process has done for me has changed my mindset in terms of money so much. I remember starting off 3 years ago thinking, I don't have money. Who would ever give me money? So, you know, there are so many ways that you can finance a property purchase. The traditional way is, you know, getting a mortgage, essentially, getting a bank or a potential lender to lend you the money that you need to buy, but for which you would require a certain amount of deposit. When you are, you know, an investor or developing, you can access different kinds of funds. Particularly, you can get bridging finance. So bridging finance is actually a very expensive form of lending. It's usually used when someone has bought a property that's not really mortgageable, essentially. So you've bought a property, let's say you bought a property at auction. And with auction properties, you basically have to buy it within 28 days. It's quite a quick turnaround, quick purchase.
Cash down as well?
Yeah, so on the auction day, you have to exchange 10% of the value. So you have to pay 10%. And then within 28 days, you have to basically finance the rest. And often people will try and raise money from investors or will approach a bridging financer to basically loan them the money to buy the property. Then they'll do up the property. Let's say it takes, you know, 4 to 8 weeks to do up the property, and then they'll sell it. They'll put it back on the market, all done up, fresh, you know, at the higher market value. And then that's how they basically make their money. And when they sell that, so say they bought it at 50K, they spent 20K doing it up, and then they sell it for 100K. So they're making a 30K profit. That 30K will be enough, or should be enough. The money that they make should then pay off the debt, the loan that they got in terms of the finance, pay off the loan, and then leave them with a little bit of money in their pocket. Yeah.
Theoretically.
So theoretically, that doesn't always happen. So if anyone is out there thinking they want to get into development or into investing, speak to a broker that can talk you through buy-to-let mortgages and the different type of lending out there. If you're looking to go down the development route, that's essentially how you access finance as a developer.
All right, thanks Thanks for that. That's, again, you're just hitting me with knowledge. I'm just like when I watch over this a few times, I'm gonna get a lot. I'm gonna be like, oh my god, there was that thing she said, and like this thing. I'm definitely sending this to my mum as well. Like, mum, some additional help, maybe. Check this out. Cool. And I think this will be the last question, just in the interest of time, because we've been going for almost a couple hours. But honestly, it's been sick. It's been sick. It's like I feel like
hopefully you can cut it down a little bit.
I feel like I've been in one of those seminars where like the tutor's just, you know, when a tutor's just on fire and they're just rattling everything off and you're just taking it in, you're like, oh my god, like, you haven't even had time to write notes because you're just deep in everything that they're saying. That's what I feel like I'm in right now. So this question, which I think is quite a good one as well, I think it goes towards what you were saying earlier about looking at investment opportunities outside of London, let's say, for the people who are here. So the question is, what's the easiest sign or method to find out if an area is getting better and then due to increase in its value?
Oh, I don't like these questions because it's one of those like, how long is a piece of string type of questions. Okay. Because I'd say whatever area you looking to invest in the UK, there's always going to be a subsection within that area where property values are more affordable, right? So for example, if you take London, the more affordable areas, you probably want to look zone 3 onwards, 3, 4, 5, right? In another city, for example, in Nottingham, probably Radford, maybe Lenton. It very much depends on where you are. I wouldn't necessarily be chasing the values of the property going up. Like I said earlier, you make your money on property when you buy. So wherever area you're looking in, when you're looking at a property that's on the market for a certain amount, use the tools available to you, like Rightmove, house sold prices. Search the area to understand, okay, what's the actual values of these properties. And often with Rightmove, it will show you a property, what the property sold for, and then it will show you all the other years that the property was bought, what it was bought for, and you can almost see each time it was sold how much it was increasing in value each time. So that's a good way to kind of track the market to see that it is going up in value. But I wouldn't use that as the only indicator, because you could look at that and property prices look to be going up in value, and then we could get something like coronavirus, and then sorry, I had to get it in there again. We have an external macroeconomic factor that impacts values significantly. So I'd say choose your macro location, i.e. a city. Start researching the various different boroughs or towns within that city. Find which ones are, more affordable based on what you can afford to buy and what type of mortgage you can get. And then from there, make sure when you're offering on the property, you're not just paying what the agent has asked for. You're actually assessing, okay, is that the true market value of the property? Can I make a cheeky offer slightly below and try and, get the offer accepted? That's the best way to approach buying a property, in my opinion.
So what you're saying is there's no like method to find the Hackney house in the 1990s, which is going to be worth like $1 million today.
Yeah, there isn't. You don't know. You really don't know. You're just kind of guessing. So the reason I bought in Radford was because I saw Radford back then as the Brixton of Nottingham. Because Radford was kind of the area that people didn't really want to live in. It was a bit gritty. Even the roads are named after South London roads. So my road is Croydon Road, and the road next to me is Brixton Road. There's a Clapham Road. It's all like pretty much like South London.
This was in Radford?
Yeah, in Radford. There's Norwood Road. I lived on Norwood Road in my second year. Crazy.
Yeah, I never noticed that.
So I look at an area where most people wouldn't want to live, and that to me is like, that's going to be a good investment, because gentrification is real, guys. You know, like you've almost got to try and spot the area that maybe not, you know, people don't really want to live in, but eventually you're going to have to. And I would say that's a good area to buy in.
And that's because of the supply and demand issue we have now, right?
Yeah,
I guess.
Yeah. And as values increase in a particular area, so at the moment, zone 2 prices in London are still are relatively unaffordable. So people are going to start looking in zone 3. Eventually zone 3 will become unaffordable, and then people start looking in zone 4. So there's different ways that you can basically tell that an area is eventually going to improve. You can so most boroughs as well, this is another top tip, most all councils will have a local plan. You can go onto their council website and download their local plan, and that's basically a document that says where they want to see development going on in the area. They you know, what strategies or things they're implementing to try and improve the area. What infrastructure are they going to put in as a council? You know, are they building new libraries, new schools, is there a new hospital going to be put in place? What's their housing strategy? How many houses do they want in the next 5 years to be built? Reading those local plans, you can understand that, oh, this area, actually, this council is really pushing for, you know, urbanization, or pushing for more things to be built. That could be a good area to invest in now, so that in 5 years' time, when this plan that they has been implemented, the value of a property is going to be higher. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, because you can see, okay, with these things in place, so if I buy that house today, when these things come into place in 5-10 years, these are going to add value to my house based on its location and the things that are around and available to it. Yeah,
exactly. That's like, you know, when they eventually finally pull their finger out and extend the Bakerloo line, which won't be for years to come, anything on that extension is going to be, you know, worth something. So if you're looking at sort of South London areas, places like Deptford, you know, and downwards, where the Bakerloo line could potentially be extended to, could be good areas to buy now for, you know, 5-10 years down the line.
Yeah, and like Crossrail, that's happened on the Crossrail route, and I think there's going to be a Crossrail 2, right, that goes from north to south.
Yeah, there's going to be, literally follow infrastructure, keep up to date with what the government's doing, what the local council is doing, and then, you know, make a reasoned decision. You know, don't just jump in and think, oh, if I buy here, values are going to go up. It's not the case.
Yeah, you're gonna have to work hard for the £1 million, guys, basically.
Definitely.
Wow, Faith, this has been a masterclass. I just have to say, it's been an absolute, it's been so sick hearing like you explain all these things that I didn't really understand that well, and you just break it down so simply, and even things that I had never even thought about in this avenue. And for other people listening who are really interested in buying property, this might have been a conversation that's helped them see the whole thing in a different perspective, and given them some tips which will change their property journey.
I hope so. I really do. I really do. I mean, that's why I do shows like this. One, because I love talking about property, and 2, because I want to help other people get onto the property ladder. So
yeah, I can really feel that. I can really feel that. Thank you for coming on today. Where can people find you for more property knowledge?
I am really trying to do this Instagram thing. I'm at The Property Hustle, all one word, on Instagram. I post, you know, snippets of, you know, videos. I basically post my YouTube videos onto Instagram and vice versa. So you can find me on YouTube as well, The Property Hustle. If you want to kind of contact me, reach out to me on Instagram. I did mention a couple of times that I currently do mentorship programs as well. They are paid mentorship programs, but that's because I like to work one-on-one with people and really help, you know, hone your skills, as it were. You know, if you want to get onto the property investment ladder, like, you know, my 8-week program essentially gets you there. I literally break down the process and I keep you accountable, really. And yeah, it's a great way for my mentees to kind of learn. I've had mentees come on that have said, you know, I want to do buy-to-lets, but then they've ended up doing serviced accommodation or a different strategy because their eyes have been opened. So yeah, like, and if you are someone who does have money and is looking to invest, but probably just doesn't want to do all the dirty work and stuff like that, I also offer consulting services as well. So yeah, hit me up on Instagram in the DMs, and yeah, we'll get the conversation started.
You heard, guys. I mean, if you've got up to this point and listen, you know Faith is worth her weight in gold in this area. Yeah, thanks again for being on, and thanks everyone for listening. Enjoy the rest of your day, Faith. I'm gonna sit down and think about everything we've spoken about. Like, whoa,
you're probably gonna be a right move, right?
Yeah,
searching for property.
Okay, I could look at my budget now. Let's see what I can save up in the next like 6 months, 12 months. Let's see what I can do.
Yeah.
No, Faith, thanks so much for being on. I really enjoyed it.
I loved it too.
Take care, everybody listening, and we'll see you on the next episode. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey, so thanks for watching this episode on the Garden of Edun. If you haven't already, please like, share, and subscribe. If you have, of course, got some value from this. Also, if you want to see more content from me, and little bits of the show before they go live, please follow either my Instagram channel at Dami Edun or the podcast Instagram channel at Garden of Edun _. And yeah, I'll be looking to give you some more content on those platforms. Yeah, thanks for listening. Safe.